Yeah, we're live. Hiya, folks. How you doing? Welcome to How to Rock Astrology. As usual, I'm Dustin Cormier. It's so nice to have you folks here today. Today we're talking about Saturn transiting your 9th house. What does it mean? What does it imply? What can you expect? Is it a bummer? Is it a drag? What's it about? Obviously, whether it's a bummer, it's a drag. It's ultimately a good thing. Not only because even the hard, dark side of the moon, shitty parts of our experience are what we develop our positive experiences through. And everything happens for a reason, and any harsh experience is ultimately can be seen in the light of being a good thing. Not only all that, but Saturn's transit to any house is a positive reinforcement and a necessary cleanup of the themes associated with that house. And that's bound to be a good thing to any house, but particularly the 9th house is on the side of positively being a good thing. Saturn's transit through there. It's probably going to be very relieving after the activities of Saturn in the 8th for most people, because the 8th house is just this splitting apart of ourselves because we don't know what to commit to, because we've been committing ourselves to a group, to this or that group or project or idea, and we're not sure of the result of the fruit of what it's going to do. But through our research, through our diligent dedication to groups, to partnerships, to a marriage, to investing energy, emotional energy, financial energy, into consolidating whatever relationships we found while Saturn was transiting our 7th. The 8th is how we consolidate, and the 9th is the fruit of the self-realization of what we've been trying to be throughout consolidating all these different groups. You can't really know what you are until you've gone through the rigmarole, the filters, the sifting sand of other people's energy fields, of dealing with others, of committing to this or that group project which contained a little bit of yourself. You see the mercurial iron fillings of what you contributed and applied in all these little groups in different ways, and this gives you a conception, a mercurial final tone of what you really truly can be to all people as a universal employment of your role, your spiritual slot. In the Vedic tradition, the 9th house is considered the house of dharma, what you are trying to do within all of your chart. And this secret dharma, this truth of self, finds its greatest expression. It's naturally in a trine to the 1st and 5th houses, which are the fire houses of expression. So the 9th house is no slouch. In fact, the West gives this this house a little bit less importance than they should, because it's a mutable house. But just because it's a mutable house doesn't mean, well, the fact that it's one of the trinal houses makes it deeply important for the expression of the soul nature and the realization of the soul nature. It's basically the 5th house from the 5th house. It's what you've built on. It's the energy. The 8th house is the 4th house from the 5th house. I'm speaking in Vedic terms here, so I shouldn't go too far into this, but that means that the 8th house is the emotional grip, the domestication of the things related to our 5th house, our creativity. And the groups we ride on when Saturn's transiting the 8th act as the root, the foundation of what the experiences we have there are, the root foundation for what becomes the expression, the 5th house of the 5th house, the expression of the 5th house, the creative expression of the soul nature through others, with others' resources, and with what we've developed, having gone through, again, the rigmarole of dealing with other people and commitment. So the 9th house generally tends to be good. The Saturn transiting the 9th tends to make us be discerning with our groups so that we feel ourselves to be worthy of what we are, of how we can best contribute to the right types of groups and bring out a deep sense of our soul's purpose. And it's this purpose that we eventually employ in the 10th house as our worldly activity. The 9th house is the sensed metaphysical superconsciousness, as they say. So our superconscious metaphysical intimation of what is the resultant philosophical ideal, meaning, purpose of everything that we've done in the charts so far, of as relates to ourselves. What is the action, the constant action that we employ as the embodiment of all the lessons, all the energies that we've used to connect with people from the 5th house basically up to the 9th house. Now we're consolidating them in the 9th house. We're consolidating who we see ourselves to be in relation to others in the world. And it involves our enjoyment. What is all the fire houses always relate to happiness in a certain way, but it's the happiness that comes through our expression, through feeling like a role, like a cog in a bigger wheel than ourselves. It's culture. 9th house. Being a part of a pattern, it's almost humanitarian even in a sense. And it often involves exploring. It's the faith to explore, the inspiration to find places and things and people which will develop seeds and roots that will eventually become the 10th house once again. Real constant opportunities and activities. The 9th house doesn't necessarily... We have lots of activities when Saturn is transiting the 9th house, but it's usually explorative feelings of... There's a faith that we need to experience that subtle mercurial residue of joy, of our best role, of our best self, seen through the blinders and filters and color filters of the people that we've interacted with while Saturn was transiting the 8th house. Even including our marriage partner if we have one. What is the combination of our marriage bringing as an expression of our mutual effort? That we both jive with, but that, again, it's essentially about relating to ourselves, the 9th house. Relating ourselves to something bigger than ourselves for the positive purpose of how we best fit in reality. It's an ergonomical design that we have in reality. The 9th house is very important in the Vedic tradition. Its key word is deeper understanding. Of course, it relates to Sagittarius, since Sagittarius is the 9th sign. There's a resonation there. The 9th house shows our religious, philosophical, or ethical principles or opinions that end up coming from our mercurial, again, our end result of what we want to put our energies into. What's the humanitarian cause, the true deep moral ethic that inspires us more than just for the group's sakes that we've been in? It's almost like we eventually inspire others in these groups that we've been in through our morals, our ethics. We find our ethic by, again, in the 8th house, by learning what is not our ethic, not our deeper purpose and desire. Or through what is, through the positive fruits and spoils of the groupings that we employed while Saturn was transiting the 7th and the 8th. Saturn going through the 7th and 8th often involves just lots of mixing with lots of different people, and there's always a residue left behind of either the positive things that we want to be to the world, and also the things that we don't want to waste time and invest in. And it's an ethic. It's bound to be something that's an archetype, a symbol, a movement, a reason, a spiritual, philosophical epithet that is beyond any individual person, but is in the collective metaphysic of energy and of humans and of themes related to humans. So that's why it involves luck. It involves getting involved in things that other people have already been involved in. And it involves contributing to some kind of epithet or philosophy or meaning that's meaningful to you, which is bound to be meaningful to other people specifically, because that's just the way the ninth house is. It's the way of, us finding our place in the collective archetypes. This happens again through communicating and interrelating and investing in other people, finding out which archetype in the collective unconscious is the one that we feel most inspired to contribute our energy to. This is something that you find after wasting, but also you finding precious places for your energy as Saturn transited the 8th house. So Saturn coming through the 9th is usually a positive placement. The place, having a good Jupiter will help the Saturn going through the 9th. You might have existential crisis where you see all your groups that you're with, and you have a hard time feeling like all of the groups that you've developed into, and energies and projects and creative things and research and ideas and worldviews that you've delved deeply into, you might come to find that none of them are revealing of the truth of the final security that you sought, of the good feeling of satisfaction and happiness, all the sexuality you might have employed while Saturn was in the 8th. You might have thrown a bunch of seed out there because you felt the need to do it, and now you're looking back and you're saying, was that acting on all the impulses that I did there? Did that bring me the joy and satisfaction that I thought it would before I had the experience? I was looking at all the sexuality and my deep impulse to connect with people in deep ways and to see if I can bring the richness of communicating with them. Did it bring me that satisfaction? Saturn coming through the 9th makes you question it. Puts pressure on you to question it in order that you can, this is just how it works, by restricting our faithful optimism, which Saturn can do here. It gives us a necessary objective view of questioning which ethics we follow that are worth following, that will ultimately give us the joy of having contributed to something that we believe in and that others will see as having been a worthy contribution. We develop a slot, a role, through our experiences with Saturn in the 9th that will bring the inspiration necessary to have real good skill and a real mark on the world, which is Saturn finally coming to the 10th house. Now, I've been rapping about this through my own epithet. I will say that the health of the 9th Lord will show, as well as the 9th house. If you have positive planets there in the 9th house, if Jupiter is well placed, because it's a karaka, an indicator of the 9th house, it will help to bring this optimism. If Jupiter's in trine to its friends like Sun, or if it's got an aspect from Mars or the Moon, especially. If Jupiter is exalted and close to its exaltation point in Cancer, if it's close to the 1st house where it gains Digbala strength. These are all things that give Jupiter strength, and these things will help to naturally draw in the grace and faith and optimism and artfulness through which we would start throughout our whole lives employing what is our felt enjoyable pursuit of life for its own sake. If we've been hacking at the meaning of life, the subjective enjoyment of life and meaning and religion and philosophy and all these things, if we've been naturally employing these, when Saturn comes into the 9th, we have the resources and tools necessary to put pressure on our existential meaning in life. We'll have the resources to question with others, to open ourselves to experiences which are very different from us. And this can be tough in the sense of just going through experiences that are very foreign Sagittarius, the globetrotter. Very foreign experiences that are challengingly different from our usual worldview, that forces us to see how we are in the face, spontaneously, in the face of a world identity. If we go to a different language-speaking place and we don't speak the language, we need to learn the language, how are we going to come off? And what is a part of our intrinsic value structure from our culture that we've always grown up with that's good and useful, but is also seen as pale and frail and downright savage in the light of this new culture's illumination on certain aspects of life? Whereas we also have illumination for that culture's savage aspects of some part of their lives. We see these differences and we make an ethical aesthetic. An aesthetic, actually, that's what that word is for. ESTHESSTIC, aesthetic. It's a metaphysical firmware that we have our personal relationship with. Anyway, I could digress about the ninth house for a while, but I feel like in order to get the most out of this reading, if we stick to our script, we're going to get, at least anyway, this is what I've been wanting to do with these videos, is we've taken my personal approach of what the ninth house means. I guess I was saying there that of what discerns a good Saturn experience is if you have a good Jupiter as well as a positive ninth house lord, that being the ninth sign from your rising sign. If the lord, the dispositor of that sign, is doing well, then the ninth house's vessel, its active vessel in the world, if it's in good dignity, good digbala strength, if it's in a sign that's ruled by a friend, if it's got positive aspects from positive planets and friends, all these support systems give the ninth house and the ninth lord the expression it needs, the openness it needs, the philosophical openness and experience, an ability to survive and endure such experiences and to keep getting up no matter what. It's our ninth lord that gets us in tune with this part of reality, of lessons, of experiencing the unknown willingly for its own sake. And as we, so the ninth, the state of the ninth house and the lord of the ninth house is going to define, and Jupiter, are going to define whether we have the resources to use Jupiter going through the ninth house at its best and to make the most of it and to put ourselves out there and have new experiences, or whether we're just going to shut our eyes through this whole period feeling a mild sense of existential dread and putting it in the wrong places for security's sake, just wanting to get away from the possibility that we could be living a better life. Saturn coming through the ninth might force you to realize that. It can make you bitter about it and can make you draw out even some life despite this, like if you have Jupiter in Capricorn, when Saturn comes through your ninth house, your Jupiter is going to be very sober, realistic, functional, and it might just say that, like there's lots of dreams that I could have, but I've got a set job and I can expand through my finances, through my stability and my safety that I've always employed, through my tried and true ways of being, can just put more energy into those. And that will give me the open door to this feeling of Jupiterian energy being funneled into something. But it won't expand. That's my point. You'll just kind of put it all through there and you'll kind of stay the same person. When the ninth lord is well placed and when you do have a good Jupiter, life will necessarily draw you to the well water of how you can use your soul energies fill up enjoyment and inspiration in a way that actually causes you to resist life less and have better results with less resistance to life. That's what the ninth house does. It's, in the Vedic astrology tradition actually considers it our most auspicious house. No matter what the rising sign is, the ninth house is the most auspicious house. So Saturn transits through it are important. They might not be directly correlatable, but as it goes through, you will find yourself gripping better ways of dealing with your whole reality based on your faith of what you are in the universe and in your relationships, having a positive sense that what you are is useful and good and joyful in everything that you do. So it's an important important transit. Let's finally read from Stephen Arroyo. That was my own interpretation of how to interpret Saturn coming through the ninth and how to know if you're going to use it at its best and what happens when you don't use Saturn in the ninth at its best. Let's read from Stephen Arroyo's experience on how this transit manifests. Stephen Arroyo is a clinical astrological counselor. So he gets clients who tell him about their experiences of Saturn in this or that house, and then he has the lived experience through many people of these things. That's what makes this book so powerful. And that's why we're sharing it today. So, this is Stephen Arroyo's interpretation of Saturn transiting the ninth house. Saturn's transit of the ninth house is primarily a period of assimilating many years' experiences and relating them to some meaningful ideal, philosophy, or regimen of self-improvement. It's common for people to embark upon a rather structured journey through gaining greater breadth of understanding at this time, whether through actual physical travel, academic training, attending lectures or church services, or solely through just concentrated individual study. I've seen cases where the person actually combined more than one of these possibilities, for example, by going to school in a foreign country. Basically, this is a time to investigate and define your ultimate beliefs, whether those leanings take you into a philosophy, a religion, metaphysical studies, or legal or social theories, and humanitarian things of today's modern social debates and concourse. Your beliefs need to be defined during this time because they will hereafter serve as ideals which guide your life and illuminate your self-direction. In the Vedic texts, the ninth sign and house always have this theme of falling down a lot. And the reason, if you're falling down a lot, it must mean that you're getting up a lot. What is it that constantly makes you keep getting up, even after falling so many times in the eighth house with different groups or this or that group or attempt at an accomplishment of a project or what have you? Whenever you fall, and if you're only thinking about the resources, the rewards that the eighth house seem to be maybe bringing you, you're just going to run into walls, as happens in material reality, because we have limited states of conception, and you're going to always have pratfalls, and you can't always get what you want. And if you have a good ninth house, you'll always keep striving to keep pressing into the unknown. And that's the ninth house is, whatever it is. What is it? What's your philosophical meaning that keeps drawing you forward, even no matter what obstacles you face? It is, in short, a time, I guess I should say, I make all this whole philosophical thing, but it might even just be enjoyment of friends, lovers, people. Jupiter is a karaka of the fifth house as well. So the ninth house is, in short, a time when most people have a strong urge towards self-improvement. For some, this means that they should bring their lives into alignment with a higher ideal, with an intrinsic ideal. For others, it means that they feel the need to travel about the world or to study diverse subjects in order to achieve a wider perspective on their lives. And still for others, particularly those who tend to accept socially defined notions of what it means to improve oneself, it is a time when some people begin, or at least commit themselves more deeply to an academic training program. Jupiter, Saturn transiting the ninth is an excellent period for the serious application of one's mental energies, and is commonly a time when one's ambitions related to influencing others through teaching, lecturing, or publications are consolidated in some definite way. It should also be noted that the ninth house is the 12th from the 10th. It's the foundation, it's the preparatory platform through which we experience the residual tones of an application of ourselves that eventually manifest as our activity in the world, as the heights of our attainment, or at least the heights of our skill attainment, as the 10th house. As the ninth house is the 12th from the 10th, as the ninth house is the 12th house from the 10th house, it represents the results of how you've worked toward gaining your ambitions, manifesting either as restlessness and dissatisfaction, or as simply realizing that you need to work harder now at expressing the knowledge that has been gained from past accomplishments or vocational activities. Saturn in the ninth, that is. It's this transit period that's also a preparation for the ensuing 10th house phase, in the sense that what ambitions you seek to accomplish then will greatly depend on the ideals to which you commit yourself to now. That's why Stephen Arroyo is wonderful, because he always brings the present transit into the context of the whole life cycle transit. We have to consider the ninth. As vague as it seems, it's always this period of hard experience on faith and optimism, which eventually become the ambition we seek to accomplish. And it greatly depends on the ideals. Our ambition and our vocation will always come from what we think is intrinsically valuable to the world. It's just a natural thing that we do. It's, what else are you going to do in life but something that's valuable to the world in some way, to a culture, to people, that's enlivening, that's enriching, that's joyful, that's good. The ninth house is that measure of our capacity to express and contribute something to the world which is actually good. And the best way to know what's good is to find things that are universally relatable to people by involving yourself with many different people and adventuring in the ninth house Sagittarian way. And this eventually becomes a useful, we eventually sublimate useful vocations, activities, things that we can do which are useful to everybody through the experiences we had while Saturn was transiting our ninth house. In a way that's so specifically, uniquely a creation of ours that is useful to many different people, that has never been invented before. Nobody has had the specific experiences that we had when we had Saturn transiting our ninth. Nobody has the intrinsic connection of, nobody's soul would define a life path in culture and universal things that are useful to people like we did when Saturn was transiting our ninth. Us having the experiences and developed on something that became our specific useful connection to something functional in the world that people need in the community and the global sphere. We are the ones who had the experiences in the ninth that brought out our specific values and capacities in the 10th house, our attainment in the 10th house. The 10th house relates to what's useful to humans. If we want to contribute at our best and push ourselves to be our best on the world, we need to relate on a stage, on a sphere that has competitors dealing through the same rules, the same game rules. Otherwise, it's like playing soccer and different people have different rules. You know, you're playing basketball with someone and they say, if I get a point, it's worth 2 points. And then you say, no, 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 if I get a point, it's worth 4 points. And then, you know, you each get 3 balls in and the person says, I win. And then you say, no, I win. Or, you know, something like that. If we're dealing with different rules, then we can't get the satisfaction of winning. Right? So that's why it's important that we have the experience of some kind of shared sense of universality in the world, in the ninth house, in culture, etc., that makes us get the residue of how our relationship of our soul with the universe can bring something useful to the world on the grand stage, with discernment, with real value and intrinsic worth that everybody can see in the public sphere. It's the daunting nature of the 10th, but it's also, once you get it, that's part of why it's so satisfying, isn't it? So that was a lot. Holy, this turned out to be a long one. But that last little bit I said there, I'm very happy with. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Starting to get my crazy face on because it's 4 in the morning. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this since 4 p.m. today. It's 4 in the morning now. I got lots of fixed energy, and I just want to get this out while I'm doing it, you know? So all in all, I hope you guys dug this. I hope that you got something out of the 9th house, learned a bit about the 9th house. I find Saturn transiting the houses is the best way to learn about the houses. Look at how Saturn affected the realm of all things related to the house that it went through, that you experienced, and then correlate it and see, oh, so that's what the 5th house feels like. Saturn is the longest transiting planet, so you can really feel those deep phases. Look at the dates between this point and this point when Saturn was affecting your this or that house, and then see the nature of that house in the experience you had. It's one of the best ways to do it. That's part of the reason why I'm doing these transit videos. But I digress. Thanks, folks. I love you guys. If you guys enjoyed this, if you're watching me for the first time, hi, I'm Dustin Cormier. You know, like, comment, subscribe, whatever, because there's more stuff always coming out in my world of teaching astrology. And if you really dug, particular, the way I speak about Saturn, you can watch the earlier parts of this series, where we really break down what Saturn's mythos is, what its archetypes are, what its experience is in the natal position, as well as its transits to other planets and to other points, etc. I give a whole spiel about it if you dug this. I also have like Pluto and natal Pluto in the houses. That's my other big thing that I got from this book. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Once again, stay tuned. I love you, and thanks for watching. For those watching live, feel free to also stay tuned. Aha, my friend Magi is watching now. Nice to see you, Magi. If you've been watching, I'm about to go into the next video. Actually, I might have a break. I'm probably going to have like a half an hour break, and then I'm going to finish these last 3 things tonight. It's going to be a late one, like I said. So feel free to hang out, and eventually we're going to get to Saturn transiting the 10th house. And if you're watching, if you're a viewer who just came in just for this video, feel free to visit me again after you've had. If you enjoyed this, visit us again once Saturn begins to transit your 10th house, and we can deal with the themes related to that as it comes. Thanks for watching, folks.